Hey guys, it's been a minute. Brendan Ortega and Mike Scow here, ready to get Sports Amigos going again.
Man, can you believe it's been a hot minute, but for good reason. We both had a lot going on. They finally decided to play like high school sports in New Mexico, so you've been focusing on that for a while.
Yeah, I want to say when February came around, that's when New Mexico brought all sports back. High school, college had already been going, and pro stuff is going on now here. So, long story short, it's been a little busy. And when we finished season 1, we did get 2 episodes in the can. So, we're very excited to get season 2 officially going with someone that means a lot to us. So, we're looking forward to that, Mike.
Let's not wait around. Let's get right to it.
Mike Scow, we have begun a second season of Sports Amigos. 10 episodes are in the books. This is 11. And I got to say, this is an awesome way to kick off season 2 with the person that's really responsible for us meeting in the first place.
Oh my gosh. You think about the many stories we have and probably just enough ammo in the clip to be dangerous and hold over his head. But this has been a long time coming. When we first started working on this project, we both had a list of people that we wanted to bring on this show, talk to. Uh-oh. Peyton, come here. So this is a Sports Amigos first.
Yeah.
My youngest, this is Peyton.
Hi. Hi,
Peyton,
Peyton.
can you say hi?
Hi, Peyton. You're
It's
so
almost
cute.
it's almost bath time for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
We got in my birthday.
Yes, you got to go get it, right?
We went through a whole season with no Peyton, and look at that.
In my birthday.
We kick off season
Okay.
2 with the great Peyton Scow. Well done, Peyton. Well done.
Perfect time. That'll be part of our discussion is the kids, of course. But yeah, the guy that kicked it off for both of us, man, the guy that gave us our start and was crazy enough to say, "I want to pay you guys to work with me and for me." To put stories on the air, but we wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't go back and change a damn thing about it. And very happy and excited to welcome the man, the myth, the legend, George Levesque, former news director and anchor at KTXS in Abilene, Texas. He's a staple out in that community now at the Paramount. George, so glad and so
There he
thankful you could
is.
join us.
Thank you for having me, guys. And I apologize to all your spouses and friends and your family for getting you involved in television news. I really do.
It's all your fault. Completely. Completely all your fault. And thank you for that. George, man, it's awesome to see you. I mean, I said this to Brian Keating when we had him on that when you guys hired me, that was a life altering thing because I was super close to not really feeling like it was going to happen, and I was about to be a teacher really. And so yeah, man, game changer for me, and I'm so happy to be catching up with you. It's been a long time.
Brandon, you know what I remember about the job and you was after we offered you the job, your father wanted to talk to me on the phone and was
Yes.
like, "Oh man, I'm so glad. This is so good for him. That is so awesome." That was the coolest thing. Nobody else's father wanted to talk to me. That was just the coolest.
Yeah, he was standing right next to me, and I had no choice. It was pretty embarrassing the way, because he said some like kind of borderline embarrassing stuff, even though it was coming from a nice place. But yeah, I'll never forget that moment too. We were sitting in the back of his tuck shop, and I had told him like, I think a call's coming pretty soon, and yeah, it was you, and yeah, never forget it. It was crazy. Let's talk about Mike's hiring story. I've never heard, especially from your side, George. Do you remember hiring Mike and like how all that played out?
Yeah, his father called me too, and he said that he would beat me if I didn't hire Mike. So we hired Mike. It just seemed pretty simple. I'm a wimp and did not want to get beat. No, I don't remember exactly. I remember his reel. Mike's reel was very news centric. He had some great stand ups in there. They were in Arizona. Uh, but I liked his presence, and you could tell by talking to him that he was into sports and that he wanted to do sports. But yeah, he was great. He was fabulous. We hired Mike. What I remember most about Mike was meeting his family when they drove him to town, because I had to go get his key to his apartment to let him in. These are the things that you do when you're the news director sometimes.
Out of your way. Go out
Dude,
of your way.
it was so cool because I remember the first call I got when you talked to me over the phone. It was a 2-hour difference from Abilene to Tucson, my hometown, and so it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like not awake yet, and my mom bursts into my room. Mike, it's an area code from Texas. Mike, wake up! And so I'm like half asleep when I'm going through this interview. And then yeah, we drove out. I think beginning of the following week or something is when you offer the job, and I really wanted to see the place. And so my parents said, well, let's go take a look. I mean, we can jump in the car and we can all change driving shifts. But I still remember coming out there. You took me to Sharky's, shout out, and you drove me around town. That was really one of the coolest things, was being able to get there and you carving out time to take a guy to lunch that you had offered a job that hadn't taken the job. And to your credit, people around Abilene know you so well that the apartment manager's name was Sharon, I believe. And she said, yeah, I know George. I know he's hiring you. So that's credit enough for me. I'll give him your apartment key. I remember that vividly.
Cool.
But I mean, that's a testament to George and what people think about him. But that's also sort of the nature of Abilene is, you're 3 or 4 degrees away from knowing somebody there.
It's small market TV too. You got to work to convince people to come. I mean, it is a first job and they want their first jobs. But the truth of the matter is, you were in Tucson, which was a thriving community, and Abilene. I love Abilene, but it is a small town. It's 120,000 people, and it takes some convincing sometimes to bring people here.
So George, let's take the audience to the beginning for you. You're a big country person through and through. Colorado City.
Mm-hmm.
You went to McMurray College. Shout out to the Warhawks. Let's wherever you want to pick it up. How did you get interested in the news world and ultimately sports? Ultimately sports is where you started at KTXS.
Yeah. Bizarre. I think the way most people get into news is the way both of y'all did. You went to college for it. You put together reels and you got a job. I was a theater major, political science minor in college. I was a radio disc jockey for several years during college. And then afterwards, I really, really loved sports talk radio. So I started my own show, and I had one for about 6 years. It was 2 hours a day of sports talk. I'd never claimed to be an expert, but I claimed to have a lot of fun, and I did. And it was great. It was a great opportunity to get to know people and do things. And then KTXS, the station that we all worked at, did a thing called Sports Sunday. And Gary Strickland was the sports director at the time. And he called, and he was there for 20-something years as sports director. And he called me. He would say, I'm putting together these roundtable discussions, and I get people from the newspaper and then myself to come on, but we have to be so politically correct. It would be nice if we had a loudmouth on there. And I said, great, I'll do it. I had a radio show, I could give my opinion a little more. So, the sports editor from the newspaper and Gary Strickland, the sports editor from KTXS, would talk about Abilene High and Cooper in glowing terms. And I would be like, well, they kind of let us down though, didn't they? So it was just a little bit of I guess it added something to the show. And I was on there doing that 5 or 6 times. And then the weekend sports anchor gig opened up, and they called and said, well, you want to come do TV? And I said, sure. So I auditioned. They showed the tape to the news director and hired me a couple of weeks later. And I started in 2000, early 2000, I think February. Yep. There was a whole lot of sports talk radio in there. And then there was a whole lot of sports for about 3 years at the television station. But the last 15 was all news.
I'm curious. I wanted to ask, because you and I went in opposite directions. I started in news. My training and my background was in news. I moved over to sports. And I know it's pretty common to see if guys in sports make a move, that isn't up the sports chain, they tend to, but if they stay in the business, they move over to news. What was it about the move that made you think, I want to switch from sports over to news?
Well, I don't mean to be negative to any sports people, because this isn't negative. I don't think it's negative.
It's a reality, though.
Yeah, it is a reality. I love sports. I find sports entertaining. To this day, it is my that and theater. I still love to do live theater and act, but those are the things that keep me sane. You know, getting up in the morning and following my sports team, or doing live theater, and it's always been that way. But to me, some of the joy was taken away when I did it for a living. I'll be frank. But to me, news always, and this is the part that may offend some sports people, news means something. And it's not that it doesn't mean something in sports, but in news, sometimes it's life or death. Sometimes it's information, for instance, with COVID right now, that can change a person's life or change the way they feel about something. Maybe they're going to be a little safer because of something they know. And then when you're talking about a fatality, or you're talking about someone who's going to go spend their lives in jail, there's just this gravity to it that attracted me, to be frank. Kind of like a service thing, if that makes any sense. Like I want to do something important. And to me, that was why I wanted to move to news. And I let them know right off the bat. I mean, I wasn't there 3 months when I came in and said, man, I would love to help you guys with the elections. Can I call in numbers or do something? So I worked every election when I was in sports as a volunteer. I wanted to do it.
I think you hit a really good point in the service aspect. And just like there is a service aspect in sports, some people say that sports is an escape, or sports is a platform to provide something to try and encourage a change of some kind.
More entertainment, maybe a little too.
Exactly. But news also, there's that service aspect to both. I'm sort of curious, the service aspect of that. How would you, sort of relay the importance of that to kids who are looking for that first small town job?
It's incredibly important. And it's both less important now than it was 20 years ago when I started, or 21 years ago, and more important at the same time. It's less important because there are fewer viewers. There are fewer people that get their news from one source or two sources. But when I was growing up, and then when I was first in television, I watched a television station every single day, got my news. I read a newspaper every single day. And now I don't know that people get news the same way. So that is the negative. It's more filtered out. There's more varied ways to get the news that you want, whether it be sports or hard news. But the importance is even more important because there's so much bad out there. There's so much fake news. I mean, I hate to trumpet that, but there is news out there that is just so far one side or the other that it's not real. And real journalists that subscribe to the motto of telling the story in the correct way, whether it be sports or otherwise, when they subscribe to that motto and they deliver good journalism, it makes a difference in the community that they're in, period. And you can find something on the internet that'll tell you right now that masks are bad for you. You will. I mean, I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. They're not. Every scientist who's legit in the world will tell you they're good for you. We need journalists who will sit there and say, I talked to scientist A and B and the American Medical Association and the CDC and the WHO and everybody else, and they say to do it. And we need truth tellers. So if you are thinking about journalism, be a truth teller. We need you.
Then what would you say is your recipe or your checklist for finding the right people that are telling stories, and sort of balancing and culling out that fake news information? How would you tell somebody this is what you should look for, this is the type of journalism you should try and find and consume?
I think journalists I think most journalists are doing their jobs just like they were. We didn't suddenly decide not to tell the truth. Journalists didn't suddenly, all of a sudden, decide, you know what, we're all going to lie to the American people. I think journalists are still doing their jobs. I think people are confused about what a journalist is right now. They get their news, and it's understandable. It's so confusing. News, I'm not even going to say the names of them, but there's so many different news variants that you get on your feeds on social media, or that you get in your inbox from your email, or that you find on the web. They're not really news. But those journalists are still out there. They're still turning stuff on the left and the right, on channels that tend to be a little left, or channels that tend to be a little right. I'm not talking about local news. I'm talking about cable news. Obviously, there's still good journalists on there. They're still doing their job. So I mean, I think you find journalists probably the same way you did when we were looking for them. You what school did they go to? What does their stuff look like? You talk to them. You find out what their motto is. And you know what? I think there's going to be plenty of people out there that still take up the service aspect of news and want to be involved.
So, George, you were at KTXS for almost 18 years. You've now been at the Paramount Theater, a beautiful theater that I got to admit, sadly, I never got to go inside. Always drove by it a ton. But you've got this great job now. You've been out of the business for a couple years. During COVID, or even let's go before COVID and now during, have you missed it at all? Being live on air, there's that's a feeling that's hard to match. Getting the adrenaline, the thrill of it, especially when there's crazy stuff going on. Have you missed it since? And during COVID, has your feelings changed about it? Have you missed being a part of something bigger than yourself?
Brendan, that is the greatest question, because it's the shocking answer, and that is when I decided to get out of news. It was a decision I never thought I was going to make. I thought I would stay at KTX. I mean, you worked your way up. I worked my way up for 16, 17 years, got to that main anchor gig. I got it. I'm going to stay here till I retire. I'm going to be that 75-year-old guy that says good night and good luck when they go to bed.
Wayne McCormick.
There you go. I wanted to be Wayne McCormick. He's my mentor. I love that guy. Love that guy. But the truth of the matter is, I can say this because my year of the contract that said I can't say bad is gone. I don't want to work for Sinclair, so I left. There's no chance I was going to work for those guys. So I was able to put in my notice months beforehand and able to say, I'm not going to be working for you. And then as soon as my contract ended, I had another job, and I was grateful for that. Now, I don't know what I would have done if my contract didn't have 4 months to go, if it had 3 years to go. I don't know what I would have done, but I was able to get out the way I wanted to get out. And I, of course, talking to my wife, we said, what are we going to do? And I said, well, we could try going to another market. I said, maybe I could go to, Tulsa, be a morning anchor, or, Austin and do weekends, or I don't know. And after a couple of weeks, she came in and said, I don't want to leave. My roots are here. I love this town. We raised our daughter here. We've got a beautiful house. We know everybody. We've been here for a quarter of a century or more. And then you realize what's most important. And I went, you know what? My career is not as important as my family. It's not as important as what she wants and what they want. And I agreed to some degree too that I love dabbling. Couldn't imagine cutting ties with it. And then so I went, well, I guess I'm gonna have to find something. And literally the next day, I mentioned to a friend of mine that I might be looking. And the answer was, whoa, well, my wife might be retiring from the Paramount. So that literally took 1 day to find that job, which is just insane. Of course, it's a nonprofit. The board had to vote me in for the job. And I took over a nonprofit, which is way different. I did negotiate with them so that I had 6 months of overlap with her, which was great, because being an executive director of a nonprofit is like a completely different world. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how different it is. Very rewarding, but very different. So I had that 6 months to kind of learn from the best. She was fabulous. She'd been in the job for 27 years or whatever it was, 26. But she said to me something, and she's been a friend for many, many years. And Betty said, the outgoing executive director at that theater, she said, you were going to be sad for a long time giving up news. You're going to be sad not getting that immediate reaction that you get walking into a restaurant and having people walk up and say hi. It does feel good most of the time.
I didn't get that much, but I know you two did.
I'm sure that you get it. I'm
only
sure
from
that
the
you do. Of
only
course,
from
none of us can
grandmas.
walk into restaurants.
Only from grandmas.
that's most of what it is old ladies and old men who come up to you, tap you on the shoulder. You're taller in person or on TV.
Yeah.
Truth is, I have not missed it a bit. I mean, when I say a bit, like maybe 1% of me goes, that might have been a fun story to read on the news. Nah, I'm good. I have adored my job, and I am incredibly fortunate about that. And let's be real frank, guys. We worked with some anchors, especially some of the female anchors we worked with. Man. They left, and then they came back, or they left and they said, "Man, I wished I was still doing it." And I always worried, Brandon, that was going to be my thought too. Like, man, I had it going and I gave it up. I can't imagine going back. I mean, who knows what's around the corner, but I can't imagine.
Well, and I imagine that the job you have now helps. Working at the Paramount Theater, a lover of theater that you are.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk about that a bit, but I want to shift over to family. You talked about Sydney. Mike was lucky enough to meet his beautiful wife in Abilene. I assume you guys met somewhere in the big country as well.
Yeah. Sydney was a journalist at the Abilene Reporter News. So when I started at KTXS, she was the hot one from the Reporter News, and we had a partnership.
Were they okay? I was going to say they weren't the enemy necessarily. You guys had
no. We had a very strong working partnership.
That's great. Yeah.
We literally shared our planning meetings every day and said, here are the stories we're working on.
Right.
It was a very intriguing kind of new concept. We were working with a newspaper,
which I would
and it
say
worked fine until
that's probably very rare now.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it was a very symbiotic relationship. It was good. So much so that I consummated that relationship with my wife. She would come up to KTXS and record a promo pretty much every night, at least 2 or 3 nights a week. And she'd come in and go, "Oh, tomorrow's Abilene Reporter News," and stand in front of the chroma key, and they'd put the headlines up. And I thought she was cute. And one of the interns there at KTXS said, "Well, I'm her best friend. I could introduce you." Nah, I'm good. She introduced us. She set us up, and
nice.
And yeah, it took, because it's been 17 years now, 16 years.
And now you have a beautiful 10-year-old.
Oh my gosh,
Julia, so cute. Love the social media stuff you include her on. Man, I was gonna have Mike ask this question, but I gotta ask it myself. He's a girl dad. I've got a boy, and I know it's different. I don't need to. I just know it's different. Girl dad advice. What girl dad advice can you give my buddy Mike?
So when they hit about 11, again, I don't know because she's 10. I'm going to be put into a medically induced coma for approximately, I don't know, till she's 17. And then I'm going to be awakened from the coma. They can show me all her homework and her grades, and then life will be great. That's
medically induced.
You're basically going to be
coma.
Captain America. That's basically what you
want. I'm going to get put on ice for about 6-7 years.
Come out all buff.
No, things are good. Things are great. I love having a little girl. It is the awesomest thing. I can't imagine having a boy. Of course I can, because I was a little boy myself. But I can't imagine me having a little boy.
Right.
Little girls rock, man.
Right.
I can second that wholeheartedly. You're wrapped around their finger from the moment you hold them.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh man, it's a ton of fun. Brandon, if you ever have another child, I do hope it's a girl.
I do too. I really do.
Yeah. There's a different kind of humility that comes with being a girl dad than a boy dad. But man, it's a blast, and it's also, I'm preparing for the drain on my wallet now.
Oh boy, the clothes.
Do yourself a favor. One piece of advice, Brandon, you did ask. And I would say this to both of you, but especially to Mike, because he does have a little girl. Introduce Star Wars and Marvel as soon as you possibly can, so that you'll get them into it, so that you will enjoy watching TV with them.
Right.
Because if it's Care Bears, and I don't know what girls watch, luckily she's into Star Wars and Star Trek and shoot 'em up, bang up stuff. So great. That's awesome.
I will say this.
On that, Mike? Yeah, how you doing with that?
So I will say this. Probably her hero right now is my dad. She calls him Gampa, and whenever she goes over there, which is about once every other week, She has a tool belt that she wears. It has all the tools. It has screwdrivers and hammers and that. And she is his shadow. She follows him around and helps with chores around the house. And okay, Peyton, we're gonna go fix this and we're gonna go hang that. And she is right there with him. And she absolutely adores him. And it's absolutely hilarious to see. And I want to say that my dad is probably the soon to be like when our youngest, who's almost one, when she can understand that concept of this is the coolest person in the world, it's going to be my dad as well, because she doesn't nap very well outside of the house. But whenever my dad picks her up and she's tired, she crashes so hard on his shoulder that he ends up crashing with her and they nap for like 2 hours.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, it really is one of the coolest things to see. My mom gushes over it. I think it's absolutely awesome, and it's one of those I want to be that grandpa.
Beautiful.
We old men like to nap.
I have started napping more often. I was
we're getting those.
I was an avid non-napper, and now I've turned my life around and started to nap more often.
Back to the Marvel stuff, and that's beautiful stuff. But back to the Marvel stuff. Julian's only 3, George, but I'm happy to report he knows basically every Avenger, like that was in even the ones that were in Endgame. Like he could go through the roster.
Atta boy.
So yeah, I'm doing all right in that.
Julia wanted to stay up from midnight at New Year's Eve this year. And Sydney was like, "No, we don't stay up till midnight." I'm like, "Come on, it's New Year's Eve. It's COVID, and we're stuck at home. I'll do it. I'll stay up." Sydney went to bed at like 9:30. I did the Marvel Endgame snap, and we timed it out, and we started it at whatever it was, 9:08:31. I can't remember the exact time. And so right when he goes, "I am Iron Man," bam, that's when it turned to midnight.
That's cool.
So yeah, we dig the Marvel.
Who's your favorite?
That is the coolest. I've seen videos in that, but to talk to somebody, computer to computer, face to face like that, I have a newfound level of respect for you as a person and as a parent.
Yeah, that's mad props. Who's your favorite?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah,
Captain Marvel, and it makes sense. I mean, the Captain Marvel. I enjoy the movie, but the Captain Marvel story. I mean, she's a little girl. She gets pushed down over and over again, but what does she do? She gets back up again, and I think that's a great role model for a 10-year-old girl too.
And Brie Larson is awesome. She's a great actress. Hey, let's go before we have a fun thing we're gonna do soon, but let's go to the Paramount Theater now, because I mean, for folks that don't know, and you mentioned it earlier, you studied theater at McMurray, and you've been in a lot of plays over the years, and I gotta say, I do regret not being able to go watch you perform, because I always heard really good things. Like I really did all the time. People always were like, "Oh, you gotta see him. You gotta see him this. You gotta see him do that." Let's go to your current gig, executive director of Paramount Theater. What's that been like? I imagine you had gone to that theater in a variety of ways so many times before taking that job. But what's the last few years been like, especially before COVID? Doing that gig, that's got to be cool.
1989, December of 1989, they had just reopened that theater maybe 2 years beforehand. And this girl I was dating at Cooper said, "I got tickets for us to go see Christmas Carol at the Paramount. You should come." And I'm like, "The Paramount? What is it? It's a movie theater?" "Yeah." "Okay." So she took me there. And you walk in underneath this canopy of hundreds of lights and neon marquee that's chasing. And it was absolutely stunning, and it took my breath away. And we walked in this theater, and there's Tiffany glass hanging up there and gold leaf paint everywhere. And this incredibly, it's just gaudy beautiful. It's unbelievable. And we walk through there, we get up to the balcony. Again, this theater seats 1,200 people. It ain't a movie theater. That's not, it was back in 1930 when it opened. And we sat there. We might have made out during the show. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. You'd be surprised how many old people tell me stories about making out in the Paramount balcony.
First date?
She and I wasn't our first date. but
Okay.
maybe second or third. I wasn't very far into it.
Okay.
But I was absolutely mesmerized by that
Yeah.
place.
Mhm.
There's no reason whatsoever that should be in Abilene, Texas. There is a Paramount in Austin that is an iconic in Austin, and I got to tour it 2 years ago. And one of my board members had said, "Oh, I'm so glad you get to go. But what I think you'll realize is that the one in Abilene is better." And again, for any of those Paramount in Austin people, I'm not trying to, but I do prefer the one in Abilene. It is just gorgeous theater. But Austin was able to keep that thing going because they're a gigantic city. We are this little town, and there is this gigantic, iconic 1,200 seat theater. And so business has got to be. We have to be very nimble. So we have a kind of a threefold business model. Number one, we show movies. We have a 4K awesome, very expensive projector that we show movies, new, old, everything in between. About once a month, maybe twice a month. I mean, when there's no COVID, we put on 3 or 4 or 5 shows a year. We put on cabarets, and so we produce our own shows. And then the other thing is we're a performing arts center. So the ballet, the opera, dozens and dozens and dozens of times a year, we are rented out and we are somebody's recital hall or somebody else's performance hall. So we are busy doing all kinds of stuff all year round. We were open last year before COVID. We were open 40 some odd weekends out of the 52. For a small town, it's pretty insane. But we are nimble. Our goal is to keep the lights on and things going on inside. And we have, and people are incredibly in love with that place. You go to TripAdvisor, and it's the number 2 place in town behind the zoo, which, as you know, is really kind of amazing for a small town. I mean, it really is an amazing zoo.
And you can't feel bad about that because the zoo is dope.
Oh no, I'm on their board too, so I'm all about the zoo as well. But the zoo is fabulous. It makes sense. I mean, it's the only one between El Paso and Dallas, and if anybody knows, that's a big chunk of scenery, driving there. But this theater exists, and the fact that it exists in Abilene, Texas, blows my mind. Because you do see these in Boston and New York City. It's the same size as the theater where Hamilton is. It's the same size theater, and it's just as gaudy and opulent too. It's just crazy that they built that in Abilene, and it was somebody's passion project in the 20s to build that theater. The fact that it exists, it just blows my mind.
So cool. I'm so happy for you that you're there.
Same.
That's just awesome, man. That's awesome. Hey, let's let's fast forward now to something. I don't know if you've seen any of the episodes yet, George, but we do a little something called the lightning round.
The lightning round.
Okay.
This is I'm very proud of this because I get to go digging around to find some tidbits, some of the passions and some likes of the people we brought on the show. Obviously, since we go so far back and our friendship is so long that I know a lot of what you're passionate about, and we've spoken a lot about it. But the lightning round is 10 questions, and it doesn't have to be rapid fire. This is more so fun because we get to give you a chance to talk about stuff that's fun. But I will start off with the sports related question. Favorite sports memory you covered at KTXS, or even when you had your radio show, your favorite one?
That is a great question. My favorite memory was actually one I didn't cover in. I'm gonna completely ignore your question. That sounds like me. I'm so sorry. I did public address for years at McMurray.
You did?
And my favorite sports memory was, calling basketball up number 32. My favorite sports memory was, for some reason, Coach Doherty at SMU brought his Division I SMU Mustangs to McMurray to play. It was the second time in NCAA history that a Division I team had visited a D3, which was awesome. But even more awesome was the fact that this coach 2 years beforehand was coaching in the Final Four. The even more crazy thing was McMurray missed the final buzzer beater to win the game. It was the coolest memory ever. I don't remember what year that was, but you know what? I think it was about 8 years ago. And it was just a stunning game.
I was going to say, I think I remember, I wasn't there, but I I want to say I remember, reading that story or being around for that story and how big of a moment that was for McMurray.
It was. ESPN covered it that night. It was. They had an editorial about it. They called it crazy. They couldn't figure out why a Division One. The crazy thing was a Division One visiting a Division Three team, and that's my memory that just blew me away. That they almost won the game.
Man,
they were down by 2, launched a 3 at the end of the game that rimmed the bucket. If it had gone in, they won. It did. They lost.
Yeah,
and it didn't matter. I mean,
Yeah, and being a PA at a buzzer beating basketball game, that's in my book. I did a lot of PA. I even actually got to fill in at McMurray a couple of times.
Yeah,
I don't think it gets any better. Being in the middle of that is really cool.
The best seat in the house. Yeah. You're dead center, and they gave you a mic. I mean, how awesome is that? Yeah, that's greatness. Being PA is awesome.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. You said that there have been a couple stories that you've seen after your news career that you thought, oh, that would be a good one to cover. Tell me one of those stories, or maybe one or two that you thought that's something that would bring me back.
I think I would have enjoyed. I did those fact finders every night for years. At the 10 o'clock news, I would break down some kind of statistic to help tell a story. It was one of my favorite things to do. I think I would enjoy telling people what to do to survive COVID, because I think they're so confused. I think people they get hit by somebody's YouTube video and then somebody else's news story from some crazy source or some politician who said something crazy. Hey, puppy. I think I would have enjoyed, even if it would have made some people mad and I had to answer a whole bunch of angry emails, I would have enjoyed giving the facts out there and feeling like, what, it might have made a difference. That would have been important.
I like that. Moving on, you and I are the same. We were not brought up as journalists of the social media era. I came to Texas and there was no social media training in college, and I was right before Twitter really became a thing. But what do you since then, what do you appreciate about this world of news and journalism that we're in now?
Appreciate in a good way or a bad way. When I started, Mike, when you were mad at an anchor, you would sit down and you would pull out your pen and you would write a letter and you would fold it and you'd stick it in an envelope and you put it in the mail. And then 3 days later, I would get that letter and I would open it and go, this guy was mad. You know how many people are willing to do that? Not very many. So if you got the letter, it meant something. And then somewhere down the line, people started phone calling. And then a little bit later, they started emailing. And that was, oh my God, it's way too easy for them to just be able to look up my email address on the website and send an email. And then Facebook came around and they don't even have to do that. They can just immediately type right there. There's no filter. And I think people, and we're all probably somewhat guilty of it, but when you don't have to wait to hit send, you just say things you probably shouldn't say. So that part of it is tough. And I'll tell you, right there at the end, my last year in journalism, I got a death threat. And so, and it was a real one. So every day before I went to work, I had to call, and the police officer would meet me at the parking lot, walk me into the door, and stand at the end of the newsroom while I did the news, walk me to my car at the end of the night. And it only lasted for a week or two, but that was real. It wasn't the only threat. It was just a legitimate threat. Right. So I do feel sorry for journalists with that. When people in power say things like the media is the real enemy of the nation, some people believe that, and some people take it for what it is. Some people think it's real. And the fact that journalists are treated that way is shocking.
I agree with you there. I do. Back during that time frame when you were hiring people at KTXS, is there a person or two whose career you've had some real fun watching them grow, watching them go from place to place, sort of where they've landed? And that's a lot of people I know. So I'm asking you to pull a needle out of the haystack.
Well, and Mike and I were talking about this. Is there anyone that has grown so much, just from the I mean, because you saw a lot of people from their rawest, greenest level, but I mean, there's got to be some people out there that have grown more than others. So is there anyone that comes to mind in that department?
Yeah. And the truth is, everybody grows pretty much every now
Yeah.
and then. Every now and then, you'll get that one that you're like, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
This guy started off here and he just really hasn't improved much, and that happens.
Yeah.
But there was one that I thought when she started, she was okay, but awkward and not very conversational. And again, she may watch this, but I have nothing but to say that she turned that around and she became incredibly personable, incredibly beautiful on the air. Her personality shines now. That's Danielle Dozier. I don't know if you remember Danielle, if you worked with her.
We
when
overlapped
she started.
just a couple of months, right? And
Yeah.
Oklahoma City now?
Man, she went to Oklahoma and then I think Indiana, maybe Pennsylvania now. She's just moving right on up, bigger markets all the time. And I look at her and follow her, and by the time she left, she was great. But she started a little bit worse than most people start, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
Again, she has earned everything to get where she is, and I'm so proud of her. But to see somebody shine like that was pretty cool. Cassandra Webb, did y'all work with Cassandra Webb?
Yes.
We did, yeah.
That was another one. She applied for a job. She's like, I'm a die spouse and I have a degree in journalism and I don't want to be on TV. But maybe I could, work in the newsroom writing stories or something. I'm like, you'd be great on TV. What are you talking about?
Was she a producer at first, or she jumped right into the reporter?
Oh, no. She started out as a producer.
You're right.
And we got her in as a part-time reporter. Now she's anchoring in Little Rock now?
Yeah, she's back in Little Rock.
Arkansas.
When
for
she
sure,
started,
yeah.
She looked like someone who didn't, oh man, I hate to say this, because she might be, but she didn't seem to have the confidence to be on air, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And she found that confidence. And now she is supremely confident. And I am so proud of her.
Very
and
cool.
You talk about turning it around. She turned it around not just as a journalist. She's a good journalist. She had a master's degree in journalism before she came.
Yeah.
But she turned around and went from somebody who was so shy and you couldn't get her to go on camera to someone who has gravitas and someone I believe and is wonderful. And I can't say enough about her.
And you just named two of the sweetest, most fun people that I remember working with over there, because Danielle was so welcoming, and she has her personality just when she's off air, but she has her personality, but she was so welcoming and so personable to me when I started, because I came on to the weekend team when she was there, and Cassandra is still somebody I see, and we'll post to each other's comments and that on Facebook every once in a while. But you're right, like two amazing people and journalists too.
Yeah. And neither one of them really had the self-esteem. I don't know if it's self-esteem. There's a difference between self-esteem to live and self-esteem to be on TV. So it's not like they were shy, wafy people, but they didn't have the self-esteem enough to go, okay, well, I'm going to be in front of 10,000 people doing the news tonight. They didn't have that much self-esteem. And to see them grow that, and they blossomed as humans too, to some degree.
Shout out Danielle and Cassandra. That's
Yep.
great.
Okay, let's see. Favorite musical or theater production that you've been in?
I've been in a bunch of good ones. One of my favorite ones was one I did last year. Abilene Christian University. They never cast anybody but their students. And literally every now and then, maybe an alumni or something, but they reached out and said, we'd like you to be the guest artist for a musical we're doing. And I said, well, what are you doing? And they told me they're doing Bright Star, which lost to Hamilton the year Hamilton came out, 6 years ago. Everything lost to Hamilton. Bright Star was written by Steve Martin, the comedian, and it's a musical. So there's a lot of bluegrass in there. He's a Grammy Award winner for bluegrass music.
Really good banjo player, right?
Yes.
He's an incredible banjo player.
Yeah.
But he's also a fabulous writer. And I had read several of his plays over the years. And back when I was in college, I was a big fan of Picasso at the Lapina Gil. And so this Bright Star is getting made. It is a true story. It is a fun, upbeat, awesome musical, one of my favorite shows ever. And I played the bad guy. Again, historically accurate. My son again, upbeat musical. My son and my daughter, or my son has an affair with this young lady who's about 16. They have a baby. He convinces my character, the mayor of the town, convinces him to go out in the woods and have a baby. I steal their baby. And the end of Act 1, I step up on a train and sing a song about how I'm going to protect my family. And I throw the baby off a train. It was sold out for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. And people would gasp when it happened.
I just didn't.
I mean, they literally gasped. The Broadway show, every single night when he'd come out for his curtain call, people would boo him. It was just wonderful playing the bad guy, man. It was super fun being the bad guy.
We're gonna have to put a disclaimer up for the episode. Spoiler alerts. Bright Star, if you've never read or seen it. Wow, that's cool. I wish I would have seen that one. That's cool.
It was fun.
Yeah, sometimes it's fun to play the bad guy. Okay, now sort of spinning this a bit. Musical that you have not performed in that you wish you could perform in.
Cats. No, I'm kidding. I don't even want to ever see Cats the rest of my life. I wish I could perform in Hamilton, but I can't rap. I don't know that I'm the right person for that show. And there is something great about the fact that show is performed by minorities and told from that point of view. I love that show. I would love to be in that, but I don't know that I ever would. I've always wanted to play Javert in Les Miserables, the bad guy from Les Miserables. Complicated, but kind of the bad guy from Les Miserables. Yeah, I'll stick with that one.
Okay, cool.
Is there a director, film or theater, that you like? This is one of those like Fantasyland questions. Is there a director that you would love the opportunity to work with, deceased or living?
Many of them. I would have to go right now with Wes Anderson, just because I think he does this trippy photography and cool postures and interesting ways of delivering your lines. I think as an actor, it would be a blast to be in a Wes Anderson film.
Yeah, he's so signature too. Like, all of his movies are just, oh yeah, that's Wes. That's a signature. Yeah, he's got his own style of film.
Yeah, he does, and it's a good style.
He's really good. Yeah.
Brandon, I want to ask you the same one.
Oh, okay. I'll go with. Did you guys see Uncut Gems?
No,
not yet.
The new Adam Sandler movie. Please see it. I think it's on Prime or Netflix right now. Netflix, yeah. The Safdie brothers are the directors. His two brothers have directed that. I've seen that, Uncut Gems, and the one he made one with Robert Pattinson. Two excellent movies. They're super young. I don't even think they're in. I think they're barely in their 30s.
Wow.
They're super up and coming, rising stars. See those two movies for sure. I'm sorry, I can't think of the one with Robert Pattinson, but if you just Google him, yeah, really, that movie turned my opinion on Robert Pattinson. I always knew him as the Twilight guy, and I wasn't really a fan of anything I'd seen of his, even outside of Twilight. That movie convinced me he was a superstar. When I found out that he was Batman, he's gonna be the new Batman, I was like, yeah, he'll be a good Batman, because that movie, yeah, he showed some real chops. Took a character I'd never seen him even attempt to do. So yeah, the Safdie brothers. I'll go with those guys.
I wanted to throw this in because I wanted to hear from all three of us what ours would be. But if it's like a big name picture, right now Christopher Nolan is a guy that I would love to. I love his style of movie, just that slow burn, just really emotional and
you guys
very.
Seen Tenet? I haven't seen Tenet yet.
No, not yet. I mean, we don't do that.
I have a kid. We all have kids. You can't show rated R or PG-13 movies like that with kids around.
Yeah.
Huge Christopher Nolan fan. He uses that music to just give this incredible tension. The Dark Knight is just one of the best movies. Of course, a lot of his stuff's good. Fabulous director. Good call.
That's his standard. A Dark Knight, I feel like, is his standards. Not just because it's a superhero movie. It's just so well done. The acting is iconic with Heath Ledger and Christian Bale. Yeah. Love Christopher Nolan.
Here's another name for you too, because of what he has collaborated with for The Mandalorian, is Jon Favreau. The people he's brought in and the mind he has for stuff like that is phenomenal. That's
he's becoming such a big name now, though. It feels like it wasn't that long ago that he was an up and coming director, but now he's just so huge.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. George, I know you are a fan of movies, so not necessarily your favorite movies, but give me about your top 3 or so of the best made movies.
Godfather 2 is in my top 5. Godfather 1 would be in my top 10, but Godfather 2, oh God, it's a great movie. Magnolia, Paul Thomas Anderson, he guided Boogie Nights and oh goodness, a whole bunch of movies. Magnolia is one of my favorite films. Grand Canyon, 1991. Lawrence Kasdan wrote and directed that film. Lawrence Kasdan, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, The Big Chill. He also did a whole bunch of great dramas as well. I think that's just one of the most brilliant screenplays I've ever seen. 3 or 4, is that good enough?
That's awesome.
All right.
Well done. Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
Schindler's List.
Ooh,
Schindler's List.
That's
got to
an
be in
all-time.
the top 5.
Yeah, that's an all-time.
Yeah.
Okay, this is one we save for absolutely everybody that comes on the show. Favorite movie that you are ashamed to admit?
Guilty pleasure.
Pacific Rim.
That's a good one.
Every other week.
I
know it's not great, but I can watch that movie every other week. Big robots fighting big monsters is so cool. When you pick up a battleship and you hit a monster with it, that is so cool.
I didn't
and you
see
turn it up really loud.
Oh, Brandon, you gotta see it.
It got like terrible reviews, right? Like
it
was a bomb, right? Yeah.
No, it wasn't a bomb, but it
wasn't a bomb.
It wasn't that big of a bomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was just above middle of the road from critics. Fans loved it because it's a total popcorn flick. But I mean,
Who's in it, guys?
Charlie Hunnam is the lead character.
Okay,
He was in Sons of Anarchy. You could tell he had fun. Idris Elba is in it as well. So you've got a good cast.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's an Academy Award-winning director.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's an Academy Award-winning,
Well, George, that doesn't sound like a guilty pleasure.
You come to think of it, it's not. But it is. It's a really guilty pleasure. What else? Idiocracy.
I knew you were going to say that one.
You did? Oh, wow. No, I've heard great things about that one. But yeah, that was more of a flop, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Commercially? Yeah, but no, I've heard.
I like Money, though.
It's more of a cult. It's more of a cult classic, right? It's becoming more of a cult classic.
No, it's a historical drama now. If you look back on it, they nailed it. They nailed exactly what America turned into. They just said it would take 500 years, and it took 10.
Nice.
It has electrolytes in it.
Mountain Dew.
I'm writing all these movies down. By the way, there's Julian hanging out in his little table. Say hi, Julian.
George, it has electrolytes in it.
But it's got electrolytes. That's what plants crave. It's the greatest movie, man.
Oh my gosh.
I will start it and my wife will be in the office and I'll just hear her cackling from the other room. We know all the lines. We heard that, Office Space, the same way, same director. Oh my God, so good.
Okay.
Oh, Mike Judge.
Yes.
Mike Judge,
that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We've reached the final question, and this one is a little impromptu, but you told us who Julia's favorite Marvel character is, Captain Marvel. Who is your favorite Marvel character?
My favorite Marvel character. Dang it. Both of my favorite characters are DC, and I'm not a DC fan. I really enjoy Batman, but only the Christopher Nolan movies. I don't like the revamped Batman. I really didn't. I'm old enough to remember when the original ones came out in '89. I didn't like them that much then. But man, the Christopher Nolan Batman is so good.
Okay.
And my favorite character when I was a kid was Green Lantern. But can we all admit that was the worst superhero movie ever made?
Yeah.
The Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern.
Top 5 worst for sure. Top 5
worst.
Easily.
It's way up there.
And it was with Ryan Reynolds, who is incredible.
Who was red.
I mean, he is so stinking good in the Deadpool movies. Deadpool. I'm going to go with my favorite Marvel.
Okay.
Deadpool.
Okay, cool.
And I quoted him. I gave the McMurray University commencement speech last year and quoted one quote, and it was from Deadpool.
Where was it?
It was, what was the...
It's hard to quote that and not cuss.
Wait, yeah, literally. That's how I read like 2 sentences and said, and I can't read any more of it because it's all cuss words after that. But his quote was something about when you're a hero, you're not a hero all the time. You're a hero. You pick your moments. You're a hero 2 or 3 times in your life when you have the difficult decision and you make the right one. And that was my point to them was, you can be imperfect. You can make mistakes. But when it comes down to the big decision of your life, doing the right thing, that's what makes you a hero. is making that big decision, the hard one, and making it right.
Deadpool's so great, and I'm really stoked about him joining the MCU.
Yes.
That's officially happening. Yeah.
That's a good quote to pull. I like how you use that for the speech too. Bravo to you, Mr.
Yes.
Storyteller,
Well done, sir.
public speaker.
Well done. Very cool.
And with that, we always close off the show with the cheers. And we say, welcome to the Sports Amigo family, an official Sports Amigo joining the growing hall of Sports Amigo friends. But George, we are very thankful and very grateful for the opportunities that you gave us, the friendships that we have with you, and the opportunity for an hour of joking around and telling stories. So cheers to that, and thank you, buddy.
We love you. Thank you so much for
Cheers.
doing it, George.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Mike.
You got it.